Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, we believe something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach. We know that becoming the best and healthiest version of yourself isn't just about following macros, a meal plan, or killing yourself at the gym. You have to look at a holistic approach, looking at stress management, sleep, mindset, lifestyle, support system, and of course, exercise and nutrition. I'm your host, Nicole Coyne, registered dietitian and founder of Healthy Steps Nutrition, CrossFit HSN, and HSN Mentoring. I'm also the author of the Healthy Kids Cookbook, 100% kid-approved recipes the entire family will love. You can find it on Amazon. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to take one step at a time to becoming the healthiest version of yourself. Today's guest is Amanda Har. She is one of our dietitians at our headquarters location. She specializes in hormone health, women's health, and she also works with many of the kids and families that have partnered with Healthy Steps Nutrition and get those healthy habits started at a young age. All right, I hope you enjoy this episode with Amanda Har. Amanda, welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast.
It is a pleasure to be here with you again.
So today we are talking about destructive thinking patterns. When we think about destructive thinking patterns, what does that really mean? Let's get started with that.
Right. So destructive thinking patterns is something that's going to detract you from where you're wanting to be going. So really working against the goals that you're trying to work so hard to achieve.
You know, I think another way to say it might be like overthinking, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, when you think about what are your thoughts telling you? Because we believe what we're thinking, and then our actions are related to what we're thinking. So is it positively impacting our goals or is it not? And I think, if you find yourself overthinking or going down these negative spirals, we have to figure out a way to stop that destructive thinking pattern and flip the script.
Right. And sometimes it can feel so natural that it feels almost like out of your control, right? Like sometimes we just have these thinking patterns that become ingrained in us, but there are ways out, which I think is a really great step of just awareness to realize that and how awesome and hopeful that is.
Jason and I read this book by John Acuff called Soundtracks, and highly recommend that every single listener either listens to that book on Audible or reads it. It's a really, really great book. But it talks a lot about the soundtracks that we're playing in our head. And a lot of it comes back to past experiences that we had or how people have treated us or things that we've dealt with in the past that are impacting what we think about our current situations. And it's kind of projecting how things are going to play out when likely they might not play out that way.
Right. And I love that book. Right. So we all listened to it or read it. And it's just so cool to see just the power of practice makes perfect, right? So sometimes we practice a lot of things in our lives, but when we practice positive soundtracks, our reality tends to change, right? Our perceived reality becomes a lot different.
Absolutely. So I want to dive into 3 steps. If you struggle with overthinking or destructive thinking patterns, 3 steps to take today to help you get away from those destructive thinking patterns. And the first thing is talking about what we are wanting. Not necessarily achieving the goal right now, but what are we wanting overall? Like, who do we want to be?
Right. And that's a powerful question, but I think we sometimes forget to ask ourselves on a regular basis because that might change throughout each day, right? What am I wanting in this moment? And it digs a lot deeper than the superficial, like, what do I want right now? Like we think about that with food, like what do I want to eat right now? What do I want to watch on TV right now? But when we think about like, what am I wanting? That's digging deep within to the steps that I'm about to take, aligning with my values and my directions that I want to be headed.
If you think about who you want to be, then let the steps that you have to take follow what you are wanting and who you are wanting to become. And I think if we keep that front and center of our mind, then we can slowly start getting away from the negative thought patterns. Because I can promise you that no one wants to think negatively, right?
Right.
Like no one's waking up saying like, I'm going to be so negative today. And that is how I'm going to conquer the day. No one's thinking that. We want to think those positive thoughts. Success breeds motivation. And if we are positively thinking about success, it's going to keep us motivated to do whatever we are wanting in life.
Right. Yep. And it, it might start out with, what am I wanting as far as my thinking patterns? Right. And that's a great place to start, because that just pervades into our whole day.
Let's talk about step number 2.
Yeah. So is it true? What I'm thinking about myself, is it true? And that leads you into either a yes or a no, which can completely change the direction of your thoughts once you realize that fact.
One of our pastor at church was talking about, a lot of times as a business owner or a coach, like you're in the people business, right? And one of the things that he said with his team, he always assumes the positive intention of that. And if you could imagine being a boss or a leader and someone does something that you don't necessarily agree with, or you're like, why the heck would you do that? But you assume the positive intention behind it, it's going to be such a better discussion with that person and you guys moving forward versus like assuming the negative. And a lot of times, even if it is true, did someone mean to do it? Like everyone's going through their own journey, their own struggles. And sometimes, we have to think, okay, if I'm dealing with this situation, are the things that I'm thinking about actually happening, or am I making it up in my head? And a lot of times we end up making it up in our head.
Definitely. Yep.
Or we're worried about an outcome that we can't control, or we assume something's going to happen in an upcoming event, and it causes us to our brains to be consumed by this one thing.
Right. And that's really the root of anxiety and just negativity, right? We're assuming things many times that haven't even happened yet, nor may never happen.
Right. So asking that question, is it true? Is it absolutely true? Likely you're going to come up with, I can't answer that yet. I don't know. No, it's not true because it hasn't happened yet. And then we can start flipping the script, which is step number 3, with positive affirmations. And Soundtracks really talked a lot about this, positive affirmations. We recently had Zach, a coach from CrossFit Generation. He created a whole challenge. And one of the things in that challenge was positive affirmations every single day, coming from a book called The Miracle Morning. And it is amazing what happens when you start talking to yourself positively and intentionally.
Right. Because again, a prompt that helps us think towards our own selves that we wouldn't otherwise think about, right? So it kind of comes from the place of guided imagery or visualization, as I see it, right? When you picture something happening or see yourself in a different way, it just ultimately ends up being what's going to be happening more often.
When you focus on something, you see it more, right? Like when we get a new car, we get a Jeep, we all of a sudden see more Jeeps, right, on the road.
Yes.
Same idea with this positive affirmation. If you start saying things like, everything's working out for me, I got this, it is going to start your brain actually believing everything is working out for me. And when something happens, you're going to turn it into a positive really fast. And then imagine how much more fulfilled you are in life when you do that. I think a really practical example to this for our CrossFit athletes or just athletes in general is, what are you saying to yourself during a workout? We're all thinking about something,
Right.
And if I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so hard, this stinks, all of these negative thoughts, that workout is exponentially harder versus sometimes I will even do this out loud. You might laugh at me, but I'll be like, you got this. Good job. Keep going. I'll talk to myself because sounds crazy, but it makes the workout a little bit easier. And when you say things out loud, it's even more believable. You're not just thinking it.
Right. And I think also I love the fact of, right, the CrossFit community where I'll tend to cheer other people on too,
Absolutely.
and then you're almost detracting the attention away from your own thoughts and just encouraging other people, which ultimately helps you with your performance too.
I love that. And you're 100% right. And I don't think any other gym atmosphere, you go in and you're cheering for other people as they're working out.
Right.
I've never seen that before. And we've dropped into hundreds of different CrossFit gyms and it happens everywhere, which is
very cool.
A cool thing about the CrossFit community for sure. So when we think about actionable steps from this podcast episode with 3 steps to change your destructive thinking patterns, the first one, we really need to think about what we are wanting, right? That And it might take some self-reflection and you asking a few different times. Like that's one of the things that you're guiding people to as a coach, like really helping them come up with their best thinking and what they're wanting. Cause I as a coach cannot project what you as a client are wanting. Like I don't know,
Exactly.
And if
Right.
we do that, like we're missing the mark here because we're not really helping support our clients become the best versions of themselves, whatever that means to them.
Right. You got it. And I mean, what someone is wanting one session, 2 weeks later, life happens. A lot of things in life happen, right? Like that may completely change based on what life has brought in. So it's really cool to just, again, checking in on this daily, even hourly is not too much because I mean, throughout the course of a day, we have how many different situations coming up that help. And this question helps us guide us in our decisions and how we can best support ourselves and other people.
I think it's so important. I think of like different conversations I have with the business and, partnerships, for instance, and, you're presented with an opportunity and you have to think about, okay, what am I wanting out of this? And when you are asking yourself that, it comes down to giving yourself clarity of like, is this the best decision for me and where I am wanting to move in my life, right? So figuring out what you're wanting, I like that you said like hourly or whenever you need to, like
Right.
it could be more than that, depending on how many interactions you have with people or things or events. And then the next thing is asking, is it true? Right? Is those destructive thought patterns, are they actually true? And likely you're probably worrying about something that's hasn't happened yet. And it's not true. And then let's flip the script and start talking about positive affirmations, which is step 3. And, I would challenge you to write down what are those positive affirmations, read them to yourself every single day in front of a mirror, start practicing it. Same thing comes out of the miracle morning, like doing this every single morning as the first thing. Like imagine if you started your day with positivity.
Then how does the rest of the day go? Right.
That's, I think, a question that we should leave all of our listeners with. Like, how does it change your outlook on the whole day? Awesome. Amanda, thank you for coming on the podcast. I think you are such a breath of fresh air and it shows with every single one of the interactions I have with you. And you truly are able to help clients guide from those destructive thinking patterns to something positive that's going to be beneficial for them to helping them become the best versions of themselves. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And Nicole, you helped me become the best version of myself. So I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Amanda. If you are looking for a nutrition coach, if you are looking for someone to help you, you can go to hireanutritioncoach.com or you can go to healthystepsnutrition.com and apply for nutrition coaching today. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review so that you can make sure and not miss another episode. By leaving us a review, it does help this podcast reach more people so that this free help can get to more people and more people can make health a way of life. We'll see you back here next week.